You know, as folks on my side of the aisle like to say, how's that hope and change working out for you? Apparently not too well for a lot of folks out there. Bob Beauprez, former Republican congressman from Colorado, is one of those who thinks it ain't working out too well either. Congressman, how are you?
Well, I'm better than I got a right to be, but that doesn't mean that I'm completely worry-free. So
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, I'm all right. I guess as good as we can be under the circumstances, as they say. So this hope and change and all of this that we were promised, and we got a lot of change, didn't we? But not a whole lot of hope.
Well, if they can pull it off, they're going to change a whole lot more. But yeah, it's startling. My wife has pointed out to me that the number of times I've gone to bed at night yelling and screaming and thinking that they can't possibly do anything worse, and by 6 in the next morning they've gone and done it.
Oh, I know it.
Yeah, they are attacking freedom. They're attacking our free market system. They're attacking our Constitution at every twist and turn.
Did you see the Steve Wynn interview on CNBC? It's been a few months ago.
I did not.
Well, he's talking about Steve Wynn, the entrepreneur, the real estate mogul, and all that. He's talking about splitting their headquarters between here and China, and he says, and one of the reasons is because China, the government of China, is more stable than what's coming out of Washington D.C. because he wakes up every day like you're talking about, not knowing what's coming down the pike tomorrow.
Well, that's the biggest problem, of course. The president blathers about how he wants to get small business going again, how he wants to get credit moving again, and the reason that small business, big business, the banks are all in lockdown and hiding in their bunker is because of the uncertainty. You know, everybody, I've been in business almost all my life. We're running a buffalo breeding ranch up in the Colorado mountains now. I say we, my wife, my son, and I, and so we're in small business again. And when I was a banker, that was pretty much our clientele was the little mom and pops, the owner-operated guys. So I've been around it all my life. This president just doesn't get it. Business people are kind of used to planning for the other shoe to drop, but now they're worried how many more shoes are we talking about and how heavy are they going to be,
and whether they're going to be on our neck.
Well, and that's where they're aiming for. This president clearly is not a friend of business. He's not a friend of our private sector system, our free market system. He is in the business of transforming America.
Right.
And we're witnessing that, unfortunately, right before our eyes.
Transforming it to what? Well, we know what he's going to transform it to, a socialist country, which is not where we need to go, and it's not where the American people wanted to go.
Well, it never worked anywhere else on earth. Why would it work here? But he is hell-bent on giving it a try, I guess, at our expense.
Well, it's funny you should say that, too, Bob, because these other countries in Western Europe are trying the austerity route. They understand you can't keep spending and keep these socialist programs going. We also read the other day where the UK is retooling their national health service because they can't afford it any longer. So they're going to make the doctor now more responsible. The doctor and the patient more responsible.
Than
the government. And so what we're doing is we're passing them on this highway as they're coming back from hell, and we're going towards it. And they're going, no, don't go down there. And Obama's turned the radio up so he doesn't hear them.
Phil, the United States of America could not today qualify for entry into the membership of the European Union because of our debt load.
Right.
Did you ever think that you would have European countries lecturing America about getting your fiscal house in order?
Isn't that amazing? I mean, even places like France,
Yeah. No, it's insane, and we're talking about federal government here. But when you look at more of the bomb that is coming, that is it's all off the books, and I'm referring now to certainly our entitlement promises, Medicare, or Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, but now you've got the new massive entitlements that are part of Obamacare, and add to that the fact that the vast majority of our states are way underwater. I just read a report that the pension plans in a majority of the states are at least 15% underfunded, can't take care of commitments, promises they've already made. You're going to have states like California, New York, maybe New Jersey, unless Chris Christie can continue to work his miracle, you're going to have state after state doing just exactly like Greece had to do to the European Union, go with hat in hand and say, bail us out.
Yeah.
Right after we're burning through $1.4 trillion of debt a year right now.
Well, leave it to the Democrats to put the bomb in Obama.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at.
Silly me, I had never even quite made that connection.
See,
That's
well,
good.
there you go. That's why you have me, Bob.
I'm glad you called me today.
Now, let's talk about the Securities and Exchange Commission. They're now exempt from the Freedom of Information Act. I mean, this is of all the times in history that we need some transparency, and this administration talks about transparency, then they're going to close the door on this.
Yeah, I thought they promised us the most transparent government ever. Instead of draining the swamp, they brought in more alligators.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, this one is kind of mind-boggling. You think Bernie Madoff, think of that whole scandal, and yet in this Barney Frank, Chris Dodd, quote, financial reform bill that is supposed to save us from ourselves,
Right.
It's layered with government on top of government, but interestingly enough, government of, by, and for the people is stripped away. There is actually a provision that prohibits Freedom of Information Act requests to anybody other than Congress. So only government has a right to know. Phil, the central planners are hard at work here. This is, I pause a bit because it's hard to say this about my own country that I dearly love, but this is what tyranny looks like.
Oh, I know it.
When it all starts to get controlled by the handful of central planners again. This is right out of Animal Farm, 1984, Atlas Shrugged, Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals. This is what he meant when he said he wanted to transform America, and I will bet you that even Barney Frank might not have known that provision was in there, but of course now he will defend it even if he didn't know. This is the work of a handful of select people that are plugged into their own little computer and typing this stuff up late at night. And as Nancy Pelosi told us about with Obamacare, we got to pass it so you can find out what's in it.
Yeah.
Well, we find out, unfortunately, after the fact,
and we don't like it. And the same folks for the financial reform, and the same folks who brought us ruin, Barney Frank, Chris Dodd, they're the ones supposedly coming up with a solution.
No, it's obscene. Barney Frank, one of his, I'll be for polite company and the daylight hours, I'll say he was a close personal friend of Barney's. They were roommates for a number of years. He was working at, I believe it was Fannie, might have been Freddie Mae, and in charge of low-income, high-risk loans when Barney is advocating on Capitol Hill for what? Relaxating the rules.
That's right.
Relaxing the rules for Fannie and Freddie and these high-risk loans, all of which came to pass. In any other business, somebody would go to prison for conflict of interest reasons, for insider trading reasons. And yet Barney and Chris both, to this day, will still say that Fannie and Freddie are just fine. That's why they're nowhere to be found in the 2,000 pages of this silly bill. Half of the mortgages in the United States of America, half of them, are held by or guaranteed by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, and nowhere in the financial reform bill are those words even found. Now, go figure.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think with that, the risk of being crude, anytime you put Barney Frank in charge of Fannie, you're going to have trouble. So I think now,
you're on a roll. You are on a roll.
Now you have an e-magazine called A Line of Sight at alineofsight.com, right?
Yeah, and we've talked a little bit about your friend Barney and Chris Dodd and others like him, and more than just a little bit about the direction this president's taken our country, or trying to take it. Yeah, alineofsight.com. I write a good bit on it. A monthly issue that is basically an e-magazine, third Tuesday of each month, and then I blog almost daily on there as well.
Great.
Lots of contributors besides just me.
Well, let me ask you before we let you go, because I got to get you, since you've been in Congress and been in politics for a long time and been around politics, your best guess as to who the Republican nominee for president is going to be in 2012. If you had to pick one now, who would you pick?
I think I think it's still very early to tell. I know a lot of people still like Mitt Romney, who I was a fan of, but I'll be honest, I think the whole thing with Romney Care in Massachusetts, that story is going to be a tough one to carry.
Yep.
I'm quite impressed what I know now about Mitch Daniels, governor in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if he is committed to going after that prize, but if he is, I think he'll get a whole lot of support and attention. Mitch is one that I'm pretty impressed with. There may be some names come out of Congress that aren't on the tip of everybody's tongue right now. I'm thinking about a guy like John Thune in the Senate.
What about Chris Christie?
Chris Christie, I think, is going to get an enormous amount of attention and should. The only real issue I would have with Chris, only question, not even an issue because I don't know. You think about a president's got to be commander-in-chief as well.
Right.
And that is a huge step up to have to take on the challenges of a nation that probably will still be at war in 2012. And
yeah, but if he can take on the likes of the Sopranos in New Jersey, then I think he can probably handle any war out there.
Do you just have to love this guy or what? I mean, he's just kind of John Wayne with a tie on.
Exactly, no kidding. I mean, and people like him. He
how
said,
do you not like him? How do you not like him?
That's right. But he said
it straight and he goes and does it.
That's right. He said the other day, though, somebody asked him if he was thinking about being president. He said, "Look, I don't have the experience. I just got into this job." And they said, well, look at Barack Obama. I said, he, just a few years ago, he was in the state Senate, and now he's president of the United States. And he says, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. You get, you put somebody there with no experience. So I mean, why should I want to do that?
I would not love this guy. And Mitch Daniels again, he rides around the state on his Harley, So I mean, there's a couple of real live people that also seem to have a little bit of leadership skill, maybe more than a little bit. And I'm confident. At the end of the day, we're going to nominate a good candidate. I hope the country and my party will rally around him, because the Lord knows we need it.
Yep. All right. Former Congressman from Colorado, Bob Beauprez. You can go to his website at alignofsight.com. Bob, appreciate it very much.
Take care, my friend. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again soon. Thank you.